Wabanaki Windows is a monthly show featuring Wabanaki perspectives, topics, and opinions, as well as interviews with Native artists, writers, and people of interest. Our topic for discussion today will be the Mascot issue. And I have a special guest today, and in full disclosure, the special guest happens to be what I call my great niece, Mullion Smith. Full name is Mullion Dana Smith. And Mullion, I'm going to let Mullion sort of, Mullion's been an activist for a few years. She's a Penobscot Nation tribal member. And so I'll just let her tell you a little bit about who she is. Mullion?
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. It's a very important topic, very timely right now. I am a Penobscot Nation tribal member. I was raised on the reservation. I still live there. I work for the tribe's federal contracting company. I suppose how you would say. I do the human resources there. And I'm also a graduate of the University of Maine in Orono with my degree in political science. I have 2 daughters that go to school on Indian Island, and happy to be raising my family there in my community. I've been an activist since I was in high school, on and off, on these mascot issues and the questions of, the stereotypical imagery and the effects of them.
So your aunt is Dr. Rebecca Sock-Basin,
Mm-hmm.
right? And she's done some activism in her life as well.
Oh, for sure.
So, and your grandmother is certainly certainly an activist.
You're right. I come by it naturally, for sure.
Yeah. So I think it's in your DNA, and so I think the largest issue that we're looking at right now is the mascot issue. And so you want to tell me about how you became involved with that mascot issue?
Sure. I was in high school. I was 15 or 16 years old, and I hadn't thought too much about it up until then. Obviously, I lived on Indian Island, so we had the Old Town Indian mascot right across the bridge, but it hadn't really hit home for me yet. And then I was watching the tournament basketball games, the high school tournaments, with my dad one night, and the Skowhegan Indians were playing the Nokomis Warriors. And the halftime show was cheerleaders and the band leaders all dressed up in fake leather dresses, wearing brightly colored fake feathers, and doing the war whooping and everything. And they had face paint on, and they were just doing these ridiculous dances. And I stood right up and I said, "Is that what people think Indians look like? Is that what they think we do?" And that was a real moment I'll never forget, and that's what lit the spark in me. My whole life I had kind of heard the team names, and it was in my conscious like it is everybody's, but it took that moment of seeing it in action and seeing people acting out these ridiculous things to really light that up in me. So after that, I was mentored by a few people that were active in the cause, and they would bring me to high schools around the state to speak about the effects on me as a young person.
So let's just stop right there.
Sure.
Effects on you as a young person.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that this spark was lit. How old were you then?
I was 15.
15?
Yeah.
So when you were seeing these mascots, whatever you want to
Mm-hmm.
call them, and headdresses and war paint and dancing around and yelping and making all kinds of noise, how did you feel about that?
It's really hard. It's hard to put into words at that age what you feel. I knew that growing up, I had been taught that our dances mean something, that our traditional clothing means something, that feathers mean something. So these objects and practices were all traditions that I had been taught to honor, and they were supposed to be sacred and used in a certain way. So to see them kind of mocked and marginalized and, really misused by people that they didn't belong to was hard on me. And at the time, I couldn't intellectualize it quite like that. I just knew that it gave me a very bad feeling, almost in my stomach,
Yeah. Like a sick feeling.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, like you knew something was wrong, but
Right.
you couldn't quite articulate it.
Right.
And at that age, of course, you hadn't gone through college or that sort of thing yet. So what happened next?
Well, I started going to these high schools and elementary schools and middle schools. You know, it's kind of like a peer talking to the, most of the time it would be civil rights teams that brought us in, you know, to sit on panels and talk to the students. And those were a very of experiences.
So you must have gotten some different and strange questions on those panels.
Oh, for sure.
Do you remember any?
I walked into, I believe it was Stanford High School, and that might have been the most hostile environment I had been in. They used the R word, and you know, every single student there had their jersey on. You know, they were very upset that we were there. So I think the questions start off as, well, who do you think you are coming in here? You know, you're not from here. You know, this is our tradition. We're honoring you. You should feel proud. And then when they hear you say, it doesn't honor me. You know, this isn't what my culture is. You know, you are actually stealing it. You know, and it's not a harmless act. You know, it does cause different, you know, negative impacts on kids and people of all ages, actually. They start to soften a little bit, and I think seeing somebody their age, you know, I wasn't as threatening to them, you know, so it helped, you know. Having
So when you said you're stealing it,
mm-hmm.
how so? We want to explain that.
Right, yeah, that's how I like to say it, because you know, I might like the shirt that you're wearing and I can admire it, but I'm not going to rip it off you and say this is my shirt now because I like it. And I think that gets to the issue of cultural appreciation versus appropriation, which I think is at the heart of a lot of this. You know, you can appreciate a culture and the beauty of it, you know, and respect it, but when you start to try to become that culture and don't experience the whole of what the culture is, you know, and the negative aspects and the, you know, the different, you know, even the positive aspects, when you try to jump in and take something that isn't yours, that's where we have problems.
So what's not theirs in
Mhm.
these particular cases happen to be regalia
Mhm.
that's used in various ceremonies and in
Mhm.
celebration, and they have specific meanings,
Mhm.
and they're symbolic to, they have special symbolism to tribal members.
Oh, for sure.
So when they put these outfits on, and when I'll say outfits, when they put them on,
Mhm.
there's no meaning to them except for maybe a Halloween costume.
Right, you know, or to you know, cheer for a basketball game, you know, that's not what it's
It
for.
kind of like degrades the whole idea
Mhm.
and the whole ceremony itself.
Right, even eagle feathers are very sacred and religious to us. You know, I would liken it to a Catholic priest mascot coming out and throwing holy water on the crowd to bless the basketball game. You know, it's that offensive.
So you're going around to different high schools
Mhm.
and you get these questions. What other questions do you get?
Just kind of, you know, what does this mean to you? You know, why is this worth your time? Don't you have better things to do? You know, this is just political correctness run amok. You know,
Let's stop right there.
that's a whole.
Tell me about your view on political correctness. How do you see that?
Mhm. Well, I think, especially right now, it's kind of grown into this big monster, the whole topic, you know, in our political climate right now. It's like the number one thing you don't want to talk about, you know, oh, they're going to be politically correct, you know. I see it as a much, much bigger issue than that. I see the mascot issue as right versus wrong. You know, it's not a question of, are you hurting people's feelings? It's a question of, you know, are you doing something that's going to have very real negative effects on people? You know, it's not a question of feelings.
The thing about political correctness, I always thought, you know, I remember, because I'm a lot older than you are, and I remember when there was, political correctness was a positive thing.
Mm-hmm.
When you tried to respect people and,
Right.
and honor who they were
Mm-hmm.
in a correct way.
Right.
But somehow that got spun around
Mm-hmm.
to be negative, like
Right.
it's horrible to respect somebody, and it's not, you know, they just turned that right around.
Right.
And now they're using it as a word for anything they don't agree with.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I see nothing wrong with, you know, taking an extra step to be sensitive to someone. You know.
Absolutely. And what are some of the other things?
You know, some people are just outright mean and racist and, you know, actually called me those words. You know, at one of the schools that had the Redskins word, they brought in an anthropologist to talk about, you know, the actual history of that it was a method of killing people, you know, taking their skin off, which is a gross thing. And some of the students, you know, said that was offensive to talk about that. Yet they're sitting there, you know, advertising it on their shirt. So you really got to make that connection with people between, you know, the reasons that we have for not wanting these and, you know, the reasons that they should be motivated to change it. I guess that's the real issue.
Yeah. So what do you think of when you think of Mascot?
Well, it's become quite a big part of my life as of late. Well, actually, for a while. I just think of, you know, why not protect who we are? You know, our ancestors went through so much so that we could even still be here. And I think I owe it to them to, you know, get away with these things that tarnish, you know, their honor.
So, a mascot, the meaning of the word mascot, the symbolism. How do you feel about that?
Right. People tell me quite a bit, the definition of it. They post it to my page because I obviously can't use a dictionary. So I would, the definition is, I think it's a token. It does include person in the definition, or something used to bring good luck or to symbolize something. So that's the literal definition. I think when we think about a mascot, it's something we can rally behind, something that represents us, something, you know, that's going to put forth the qualities.
So do you think Indians are objects that bring good luck?
No, exactly. You know, one of the exercises we used to do in the schools were, you know, name off some mascots, and it was, you know, bears, tigers, panthers, you know, that sort of thing, Indians, you know. So then we tell the kids, you know, what about this seems odd to you? You know, well, Indians are the only ones up there that are people, you know, that are animals or something else.
So it's a dehumanizing effect.
Right.
Yeah. So, I think we were talking earlier, and I've done a little bit of research on this, and it seems like the American Psychological Association has had something to say about the effects on Native children, and you've done some of that research. Do you remember what their findings were?
Yeah, it was actually all children. They started the study and collected a lot of data about it, and then in 2005 they released a resolution calling for the end of Indian mascots. They cited that they promote culturally abusive behavior, that they promote negative stereotypes, and really diminish the learning environment for kids of all backgrounds, which is huge for us, that a group like that, that's not tribal, you know, not affiliated with Native people at all, you know, can come together and recognize this as a problem. And actually the Maine Counseling Association adopted a similar resolution this year, so they've also kind of fallen in line with this.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's quite a few professionals, teachers and lawyers, who basically have been educated and understand that this is a very negative meaning. There's a very negative meaning and very negative effect when you use Native people as mascots.
Yeah.
So we're in you're going around to different high schools and you're speaking, and so.
And we saw many of them change. Well, actually, all of them have now changed except for one. I think one of the best ones I was involved in was Old Town High School in 2005. It was basically a group of us that spoke from the Penobscot tribe to the school board, and there were people from the town that wanted to keep it that spoke as well. You know, and it was the same kind of arguments. It's our tradition. It's who we are. And so they heard everybody out, and then at the very end of the meeting, they voted to change it. You know, so it was.
So what was the persuasive argument, I guess, for them to accept the change?
I guess what we really made clear was this is kind of, you know, coming into the modern world. You know, this is absolutely institutionalized racism. You know, you are validating racism by having this Indian mascot. You know, at Old Town there used to be, you know, they would like hang up, you know, fake Indian dolls or something before football games and like burn them, and so there was absolutely kind of, you know, ugly practices they were doing. They didn't do those in 2005, but they did have a history of, you know, misusing this mascot and making it into a very racist thing. So I think once we started pointing those out and making it more of a common sense thing and saying, you're not honoring us, if anything you're disrespecting us, you know, these people that, you know, we're 2 minutes from Old Town, you know, so these people
Sure.
that you're neighbors with, you know, we're telling you that this is wrong, and we send a lot of our kids here, you know, I think it was kind of a no-brainer for them.
Yeah, I mean, do you think the fact that Old Town was so close
Mhm.
to the tribal community that
Mhm.
they understood that there was humans,
Right.
you know, not
Yeah.
just mascots.
Right. I think it helped quite a bit because they could see us as people. You know, we lived and worked beside a lot of them, you know, so it's easier to take that kind of mystery out of the mascot. You know, it's like, these are the people, we're still here, you know, and we're telling you, you know, what we'd like you to do.
Yeah, I mean, usually communities that are closest to the native communities are the most racist.
Right.
They usually are. So the fact that you got Old Town
Right.
to look at the situation and actually act on it and change the mascot, I think that was huge.
Right. And they did a wonderful job with the actual change. They had the students come together and get together a pool of possible new names, and then the students did the vote. You know, and I've been to games since then where they've been the Coyotes, and they're still cheering and they're excited, and you know, it doesn't take away any of the pride. If anything, it gives them a new positive change to rally behind.
So it sort of puts them right into the modern, today
Right.
world.
Yeah. Right. And what I like to tell people is it's okay if you didn't know any better, but now you do, so let's do better together.
Yeah. But when it gets really not okay is when you do know better
Mhm.
and you keep on doing it.
And you choose to not get it.
Yeah. So you, after your circuits with the high
Mhm.
schools and whatever, and a lot of them, most of them did change,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So then you had one high school
Yes.
that I think, if I remember right in my research, the American Indian movement, AIM,
Mhm.
in 1999 noticed the mascot for the Skowhegan High School, and it was a big, huge Indian head, and I'm not sure, I haven't found that logo, I don't know if we can find it someplace, but they wrote a letter complaining about that and that it was a racist logo.
Mhm.
So that's sort of been in the mix in Skowhegan since 1999.
Mhm.
You know, and I understand that they did do something about that at that point. I think they took they took the logo off,
Right.
but they didn't, and they changed it to another logo.
Yeah, they basically don't use much. They took, in 2001, after the letter from AIM had kind of made them aware of things, they actually sent out a survey to the town, which is some good reading, if you ever have the time and energy. And a lot of people, you know, they were just, it was just kind of a survey, you know, what do you feel about this? You know, what would you like to see happen? And a lot of people said, you know, maybe we should change it. Maybe it is wrong. If somebody's telling us it's wrong in the group that we're trying to represent, you know, maybe it's wrong. But there was a lot of people with some colorful commentary on it. So after all that happened, they had a series of meetings and decided to take away all of the imagery, all of the kind of practices that I described earlier at the games, you know, with the people dressed up.
Okay, yeah, let's just back up about Skowhegan. Let's look at the history of the town just a little bit. I think that back in the 1700s, the British,
Right.
it was the British sent a force into that town. It wasn't Skowhegan then.
It was
It was Norridgewock. And Father Rao. A Jesuit priest was there. And at that time, when that contingency of British soldiers arrived, in our history books it reads something like there was an act of war or something, and they went in and they had this big battle, and they won the battle. When in effect, what happened, and we call it a massacre, they went in and they killed women and children, and basically, and killed Father Razzle and brought all those scalps that they took to Boston, and basically just eliminated that village. And that's the history of Skowhegan. That's where Skowhegan was built from, built on the bodies of Native people.
Yeah, you can still go to the massacre site there, actually.
Yeah, and also I believe they have a statue of a large, well, big Indian.
They do, yeah. It was a local artist, a non-native artist, that he has a bunch of statues, but they commissioned him, or he did it himself, to make this big statue. And it's interesting, they really love that statue, and they rally behind it, and they call it their Indian. And I pointed out before, I say, they give more, qualities of a person to this piece of wood than they do actual people. It's interesting.
Okay, so they have this big Indian.
Yeah, they brag about it. They say it's the biggest Indian in Maine.
Yeah. Well, okay. So they have that. And these people in Skowhegan believe that it's their heritage to use Indian as a mascot.
Right.
It's their heritage. Even though Indian people have lived for thousands of years before that in our heritage, in the past 60 years or something like that, of theirs, this is their heritage, okay. So you took it, you went and approached the school.
Right, a group.
So tell us about how that, from the very
Sure.
beginning, what happened there.
Yeah, a group of natives from Maine approached the school and just kind of said, can we revisit this? We just don't think this is over. You may have taken away a lot of your imagery in 2001. But however, you still use the word Indians, and you're still, using us as mascots. So yeah, 3 or 4 people approached them and decided to kind of reopen this issue with the superintendent up there. So the school board invited a group of us to present to the policy committee, which is a subcommittee of the whole school board. It's probably, 8 people, and the full school board's about, 15 or 20. So a group of Wabanaki people, we represented all the tribes. There was probably about a dozen of us, went and had a meeting with them. We sat kind of face to face in this room, and we each gave some testimony about why we'd like to see the mascot changed, and citing, personal stories and research, and they kind of had a good mix of things to hear about. So that meeting was fairly pleasant. That was the policy committee. So they presented their findings to the larger school board after that meeting, which led to them deciding to do a public forum where they listened to people from the town talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Public forum. Now, one of these. Tell me what happened with one of the committee members. When did that happen? When did that committee member approach you?
She approached me after the first meeting where there's the group of us, and I actually, I was one of the ones to bring up the idea of a public forum. I said, I think it would be good to hear from the town, and, you know, other cases I've worked on, we've worked with them.
She was on the school committee?
She was on the school board and the public policy committee.
School board, okay.
Yeah, so, the policy committee is just a smaller group of school board members. So she approached me and she said, I think that's a great idea, and we would love to have you all back. And I said, well, great, you know, so I got working. I started organizing, you know, a bunch of people that I thought might, you know, be good and beneficial to go over and answer questions and have discussions. 2 days before the public forum, I got an email from somebody else, I can't even remember, who said, just to let you know, I heard a rumor that they're not going to let anyone talk unless you live in the district or if you're a representative to the legislature. So,
okay, let me just back up.
Sure.
All right. So, I've read a few of the newspaper articles about this, and it's my understanding that the same person who came to you and said, gee, this is a good idea and we need more information, that same person brought forward the idea that only residents should talk, and
That's correct.
yeah. And then made it a rule so that anybody outside except for the representatives could not speak at this public hearing.
Right. And she had been messaging me through Facebook saying, you know, I'd like to learn more about this. You know, I shared a lot of informational links with her, and it was pretty pleasant. So I felt that we had established kind of a, you know, a good relationship. And so how long was it between the time that you had first talked to her and the public meeting? Like a week.
A
Yeah,
week.
it wasn't that long.
Okay.
Yeah, when we left the first meeting and she, you know, was friendly and said you all should come back, I don't know, 4 days later, I found out that we wouldn't be allowed to talk.
So, then what happened?
Yeah, so I reached out to her again, and I said, geez, I hope this is just a rumor. You know, I said, this is kind of frustrating if this is true. And I basically got the feeling from her, you had your turn, now it's our turn.
Yeah.
So it was kind of immediately
so
shut
you
down.
had been providing her with all kinds of information before this public hearing.
Yes.
And it sounds to me like she didn't want that information out to the public.
Right. Yeah. I looking back on it now, I think she played me a little bit, or a lot of it.
Well, you know,
It happens.
it happens.
Yeah.
So, and then what happened?
And then we actually had our tribal general meeting the weekend before the public forum in Skowhegan. And at that meeting, we had voted to remove our representative from the legislature, you know, based on a lot of things I'm sure you know all about, you know, in the state of Maine. Basically, the relationship is not working or
I do,
non-existent.
and we'll probably have a whole show on that one, but
Exactly.
yeah.
So based on other, you know, political factors, we had done that. So I approached the chief and the membership, you know, I said on the microphone at the meeting, I said, this is what's going on. We need somebody to speak there, you know, if we don't have a representative, you know, can I be authorized to go? And the chief was very gracious and agreed and gave me a letter of support and said that I could absolutely speak on behalf of the tribe that day. So she had sent me more messages saying, I hope that you respect our rules. I really hope you don't show up and try to talk. You will not be allowed to talk if you show up. And I said, well, you know, I guess we'll see. I said, I think everything will be respectful and polite. I said, I have, you know, no motive to come over there and, you know, make a bunch of trouble. I said, this is just, you all need to hear from us at this forum. You know, I said, it's very important to hear our voice,
So,
you know.
yeah, so actually what the effect of this, you not being able to speak is silence in the voices of the Native people.
Right.
Yeah.
So we showed up to the forum. As we were waiting for it to start, there was a softball game or a baseball game going on, and we heard a bunch of like chanting and more whoops outside. You know? So they, you know, they say we don't do that anymore, but we were all right there, you know, waiting for it to start and heard it. So there was that going into it. And we had a good group of support there. Some people came over, you know, knowing that they couldn't speak, they came over to support anyway, which is great. And then...
They couldn't speak?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Sounds a lot like the legislature, but...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, they couldn't speak.
So we're all there. hoping, everybody was hoping that I would get a chance to speak. And they were all there knowing that they couldn't, which was great that we still had that show of support. So as the forum got going, we heard, a lot of speakers, very rude. One man said, I have 7 sons and they are all Skowhegan Indians and that's my tribe and I'm just as Indian as you are to my dad and us. And, so a lot of kind of angry, outrageous things. A lot of this theme, you're from away, you're coming in here trying to tell us what to do.
You're from away?
Oh, that's
You're
their big
away.
thing.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
You're from away.
Yeah. Okay.
When they live on, the lands
The
of our
Indian land,
ancestors.
sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's frustrating. So as the forum got on, they got to my name, and I had signed in as a speaker. I had shown them my letter saying that I was authorized by the tribe. So they let me sign in. But then when I got to my name, the moderator said, well, what exactly are you here for? Are you a representative? And I was showing them my letter. I said, well, no, not exactly, but here, I'm going to explain. And I think it was too...
So, I mean, actually, you were the representative.
Right, exactly, yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that's their big thing. They say, we're not going to take anyone by proxy. And it wasn't even really a proxy situation.
Right.
I was designated for that day.
Exactly.
So, about 2 seconds at the microphone, they motioned for the police to come up and get me.
The police?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and he escorted me.
And how
away.
tall are you and how big and scary are you?
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm about 5 feet
I
tall.
think the words coming out of your mouth might have been the scariest.
Mhm.
So the police came,
Yep.
and so you had a letter with you
Mhm.
addressed to them from the Penobscot Nation chief.
Yep.
And did you get to read that letter?
No, they had the police on me
Did they know
immediately.
Did they know that you had the letter with you?
Yes, yeah, I had shown it to them at the table when I first signed up to be a speaker. And then I was probably, 4 feet from them when I was at the microphone and I was showing it to them, or trying to. Yeah.
Okay, so then they got the police to come and they drag you out? Or?
Right, well, he removed me from the microphone. Thankfully, he didn't take me out of the whole room, and he apologized to me after. He even felt that it was kind of ridiculous. And people were cheering and yelling at me and telling me to sit down, the people from the town.
How'd that make you feel? With the screaming and the yelling and the...
It's scary. It's not nice. Like you said, I'm not a huge person, and to have a policeman, with a gun, walking with me and have these
sure he
people
didn't use the
yelling
gun
at me.
on
No,
you,
he didn't. But somebody in that kind of authority, carrying a weapon,
Sure.
I didn't, I wasn't doing anything to cause a police to escort me anywhere.
Yeah, but once you realized that they were not going to listen, then, you didn't have to be dragged out or...
No.
You didn't do any screaming or
No,
yelling?
no, I walked calmly back to my seat to where my husband was. My husband and my father were ready to not be so calm. I think they weren't too happy. And then there was a lot of media there, so I did a few interviews right in the same room, where they were still having the forum.
So there were a lot of people that were unhappy on the other side that... But you didn't even get to talk.
Right.
And yet they were still screaming at you.
Right. Yeah. The great thing about the forum, though, was I think I counted 28 to 21 people, or maybe about that. There was more people that spoke to change the mascot. A lot of people in the town just completely bewildered why this is even an issue, and really want to do the right thing and be respectful.
Tell me about the young man who had the Facebook page.
There was a Facebook page called Keep Skowhegan the Indians, and that was an open page. Anybody could go and speak on it, and it was run by a 17-year-old homeschool student in the Skowhegan school system, and he had come to a few of the school board meetings. He came to the public forum. He had led a silent protest outside of the meeting where all the Wabanaki delegation was at. So he'd been, involved right along.
Right, and he really wanted to keep the name.
Yes,
And
yes.
And the Facebook was all about keeping that name.
Right. Yeah. He had a bunch of people on the page, and I'd get dragged into discussions in there once in a while. But mostly it was constructive. Some kind of ugly racist stuff. But yes, he was right there, kind of at the forefront, being the face of keeping the mascot. And after the public forum, he very publicly and apologetically changed his mind. He said, I'm a Christian, and as a Christian, we're taught to love people, you know, as other humans. He goes, and when I see the pain in the Native people's eyes, he goes, I know I'm not being a good Christian. He goes, and I know that we need to make this change, which is remarkable, you know, at 17 years old.
So did he keep moderating that Facebook page?
He didn't. He turned it over to the school board member.
The same one who
The same exact one.
silenced you.
Right. And she began running it. And then after a while, they had so much kind of ugly racist banter that they turned their public page into a private group.
Yeah. And I understand that you did get some shots of that, some of that banter on that.
Oh,
Is that
for sure.
the one? The Facebook page, or was that a different page?
I have some from that. They weren't too bad on that, but in the private group, I've been lucky to have people kind of send things along to me when they see really rude and outrageous things, racist things.
Yeah.
So that's a private group. You need to be approved by her to be.
Do you have any of the Facebook shots that you mentioned to me that
I do.
that you have? If you could
I have one.
maybe read a couple of those, just so we could get a flavor of what kind of hatred and feelings they had on that.
This is a recent one.
Dated what?
Dated last Friday.
Okay.
This mascot will never change. It would be a miracle for the Penobscot tribe to get this done. This is a community issue. The state will not get involved. They are wasting their time and efforts. The Indians have been around for more than a decade now, and they want to bring this issue up. What are they going to come take all our houses and take our merchandise that represent the Indian? Are they going to try to pass a law that has us arrested for wearing it? Doubt it. These Native Americans go to school for free and have everything handed to them because of their blood type. I'm honestly not trying to be racist because I care and respect my community, but I truly believe this will not change and I will forever be an Indian pride. Another one posted a meme of duct tape that says lip gloss for whiners, and that's about me. I'll get some of the older ones here. There was one girl that posted a picture of a little like caricature of an Indian running, and it said, "My Indian name is Runs with Beer."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was posted in Skowhegan Indian Pride. Some other good ones. This is kind of, I think, what you were speaking to earlier. They use this image quite a bit. It's like a big, beefy, muscular-looking, angry Indian guy. They rally behind that quite a bit. Let me get you some of the good ones. This is a picture of the Scout towel.
Oh yeah, I remember
that we've talked about.
I remember reading about that towel that was in the coach's garage he found.
Yes, it was a baseball coach.
It's a red towel that's supposed to symbolize wiping someone's head after you scalped them or something.
Right. Yeah, it was a rally towel, you know, that they swing at games or whatever.
Yeah.
Here's another one they posted in. Get off the reservation. It's 2015. You are no more or less than any other citizen in this nation. It's not your nation. No ill intent has ever pursued with the use of the Indian for our schools. Some love it. If you keep on with this BS, I think they should keep the Indian part and add defeaters, because 2 dogs just won't work. I think that's some kind of shot at our language. This one was directed at me. Perhaps if she chewed beaver hide for leather, worked in the field all day, and gut fish, was manhandled and traded for buffalo hides, where she was used as a toy, she wouldn't feel obliged to get her Wi-Fi laptop and liberal up about how bad she has it, while her children grow in a free society able to make their own choices and receive awful government grants for education and so on. So this is kind of a common theme.
Yeah, I think that tells us pretty much the flavor of the situation and the toxic racist environment that exists.
You know, they say, go beat your war drum elsewhere. You know, they accuse us of being racist and promoting hate speech, but, you know, you've seen kind of the colorful language that they use.
But after that hearing, after you left that hearing, what happened after that?
Well, we've pushed on. I actually started a petition to gather support for anybody that wants to sign it to be presented to the Maine Board of Education, the Maine Principals Association, and the Skowhegan School Board. Right after that hearing, where we weren't allowed to speak, we started really, cracking down on it. And then about 2 weeks later, they had another school board meeting where they voted to keep the mascot 11-9.
11-9.
Mm-hmm.
Landslide vote. Tell me about Columbus Day.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that. This was this past Columbus Day?
It was,
yes. Okay.
yes. For the past few years, a group of people in the Skowhegan area have decided to rename Columbus Day Indigenous Peoples Day, like other cities have been doing.
Right.
So there was an Indigenous Peoples Day rally scheduled in Skowhegan for that day. So about, 2 months out from it, or maybe not even that, Skowhegan Indian Pride, their group that wants to keep the mascot, decided to organize a Indian Pride rally on Columbus Day in front of the statue.
So, and what was the fundraiser for, or whatever?
They raised funds for their animal shelter and their homeless shelter, I believe, or food pantry. Yeah, food pantry.
So here, scenario, Columbus Day, okay, the day that in our history, we remember how Columbus slaughtered and killed and maimed and just was relentless and committed genocide against Native people. So on Columbus Day, they hold a fundraiser or rally or something in front of the big wooden Indian. And the fund was for homeless and pets?
Animals, yeah.
Animals.
For their animal shelter. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So there's a whole lot of stuff going on there.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's like-
they made it onto a national news website. It was like the 10 most ridiculous headlines of the week.
Yeah.
And one of them was, here's the flyer right here. Yep, Skowhegan Indian Pride Rally on Columbus Day. Yeah, the headline was Group Holds Indian Pride Rally on Columbus Day, in favor of keeping high school Indian mascot.
But there was nothing meant by that.
Right.
They didn't mean anything by that. I mean, they could have was going to hold it in anyway. It doesn't matter. But it just happened to be on Columbus Day.
Right.
Just
yeah.
happened to be in front of this big wooden. That doesn't even look like a freak Indian.
Right. Yeah. The school board member, our buddy there, she gave an interview after the rally and said, well, the media has really misconstrued this. And yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been made to be something it's not, and this is showing our community pride.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what they stick to. But as you've seen here, I mean, it's they're not acting very prideful all the time.
And yet, you keep going back.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Glutton for punishment. I know it. We're not going to stop. I think it's important to note that I'm just one of a group of us. I get singled out quite a bit by Skowhegan Indian Pride. You've heard kind of gross things they've said about me, that I've gotten private messages I won't even read about, like my children and, threatening me and stuff. And I'm actually there's 2 other admins of the Not Your Mascot main chapter page, and they do great work. And then there's a whole kind of, almost a coalition of us working on this, and we're absolutely not going to go away.
Yeah. So at any time did you feel fearful or endangered doing any of this stuff?
Well, I don't feel great being in that town by myself, for sure. I think I do get recognized there,
Sure
unfortunately.
you do.
Yeah. So, I mean, I am, a mother and a wife, on a human level. I hope that none of the threats, come through, obviously.
So they've threatened your children and...
They talk about my children. They call me a bad mother. They say that my children are...
But I know they threatened your father.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, so I would hope that they're kind of all bark and no bite. But I try not to go there alone when I do go there. And I get right in and get right out. Yeah, I won't be hanging out over there. So, which is too bad. It's unfortunate in 2016, people can take it to that level.
The state of Maine, we're not Alabama, at least I didn't think we were.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of wondering,
I went there actually last 2 Thursdays ago now. I presented our petition to the school board over there. We had almost 1,000 names of people that want to see the mascot change. So I presented, it was very straightforward, just impressing on them. I read the American Psychological Association evidence about, what's happening to kids in schools, to keep these mascots. And it wasn't...
Do you have anything written about that? Do you have something...
about the meeting last Thursday?
No, I mean about what it does to Indian children.
Yeah, I can get that right out.
You can.
It's actually the same language I sent to the Maine State Board of Education as well.
Yeah, you have a letter to the Maine. Do you want to read that letter that you sent?
Sure. I said, I am part of a group that is petitioning for the removal of the racist high school mascot of Skowhegan High School, the Indians. There is plenty of evidence to suggest that Indian mascots are harmful to the learning environment of children of all backgrounds, as cited in this statement from the American Psychological Association. Basically, their findings are: Indian mascots undermine the educational experiences of members of all communities, especially those who have had little or no contact with indigenous peoples. The symbols, images, and mascots teach non-native children that it is acceptable to participate in culturally abusive behavior and perpetuate inaccurate misconceptions about American Indian culture. Indian mascots establish an unwelcome and oftentimes hostile learning environment for American Indian students that affirms negative images and stereotypes that are promoted in mainstream society. Indian mascots present stereotypical images of American Indians. Such mascots are a contemporary example of prejudice by the dominant culture against racial and ethnic minority groups. Indian mascots are a form of discrimination against American Indian nations that can lead to negative relations between groups. And I asked them to, I am requesting a meeting with you to deliver our petition and formally ask that you consider our request to take action on this issue. We are also delivering the signatures to the principal of MSAD 54 as well as the Maine Principals Association. You have a responsibility to the children of our state and the quality of their education. Indian mascots not only interfere with the learning environment, they promote violence and racism in our schools. And
so you sent that letter?
I did, yeah.
When did you send that letter?
I'll give you the date right here. I sent that on April 5th.
On April 5th?
Yeah.
Okay. And haven't heard anything
I haven't.
back from them to date?
No, and every letter that we've written them or our supporters have written them, they've responded with it's a local control issue, and they won't get involved. So basically,
you're talking about the
Maine State Board of Education.
The Maine State Board of Education,
right?
Says it's a local control issue.
Yes.
Which seems kind of strange because I think the Maine State Board of Education gets involved with
yeah.
local schools
with
all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they encourage us to keep working in our communities. That's their language. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's frustrating, but I think, like I said in the letter, they do have a responsibility to the kids, and if the kids aren't getting the best education they can because a group of adults is trying to hang on to a mascot, something's wrong and somebody's got to step in.
So the reason you keep this fight going is why? I mean, you're not coming out looking so great sometimes. I mean, you get beat up and you get yelled at and screamed at and talked down to, and why do you keep doing that?
Well, I think who else is going to do it? I know that we do have a lot of people working on it. I don't mind taking the brunt of it. I can handle it, and I think I owe it to, you know, like I said before, my ancestors that worked so hard so that I could be here and be heard. And also to my children, you know, so that they don't have to grow up and go play sports in Skowhegan and see people making fun of their culture. That's kind of a driving thing for me. My kids are 7 and 9 right now, and hopefully, you know, maybe by the time they get into high school, you know, they won't have to deal with this crap. I think it's important on a bigger scale when invisible people become visible and when silent people find a voice. It can be scary for those that have been used to the power, and they can feel very threatened. And I think if we let go of that voice and don't fully use it, that we're going backwards. So that's why I'm going to keep, you know, knocking on the door until they answer.
So you also, we have an obligation to future generations of children, and I think that's what I'm seeing, and I know that's what you're seeing, and the people that are trying to educate Maine people about this issue. The scary thing is that when people are told about this and they are educated, the majority say we understand and we'll change it.
Right.
But we have this one core that is just being racist and hate-filled and nasty. And that's worrisome.
It is.
That's worrisome.
Absolutely.
So what's your next steps going to be? I mean, you've written these letters, and so...
Right. We're going to present to the Maine Board of Education on May 11th. I haven't heard back from them, so we're going to go ahead and go to their meeting.
Okay.
So that's kind of the immediate steps. After the last meeting in Skowhegan, a lot of people reached out to me and said, you know, how can I help? What can I do? So I'll be looking into, you know, those different...
Yeah, I'm sure that there are people listening right now that have that same question. You know,
right.
How can they help and what can they do?
Right. Yeah, even people across the country that have come and liked the page. I spoke on a panel actually down in Harvard last week, and a lot of the native students there were saying, well, how do we start Not Your Mascot Massachusetts? You know? So it's good to see it, you know, kind of spreading. And Not Your Mascot, I should say, is a national nonprofit. I kind of started a Facebook page for Maine, you know, and the people interested in that here. But it is a very big group, www.notyourmascots.org. They've been working on, you know, Cleveland and Washington and, you know, kind of the bigger scale. So there's a huge network of Native people working on this.
Yeah. So what can the average Maine citizen do if they wanted to help? What would you recommend?
I think coming to check out my page. It's on Facebook. It's Not Your Mascot, all one word, Maine chapter. Or you can find me by my name, Mullian Smith. I usually post, you know, on both pages quite a bit. And right now it's kind of, you know, putting pressure on people, you know, writing the letters, signing the petitions, you know, showing up to support at meetings if you feel strongly, you know, and just getting this, the attention it deserves, you know. And I really am so grateful for the people working with me and the allies that are not Native that have come out and are brave enough to, you know, lend their voice. I think it's remarkable.
So there are lots of people that are not Native, people who get it, and who basically, you know, quite frankly, don't understand why this is going on for so long, and why people in Skowhegan just don't say, look, you know, we really didn't mean to hurt anybody, and so let's be friends, let's cooperate here, and, you know, and work towards finding another mascot for the team, and in cooperation with you know, the students and input from, if they were interested, from Indians and the tribes. It could be a much friendlier, much better outcome, and I think that's what you're striving for, right? I mean, you don't want to, you're not just there poking the snake, right?
Right. Yeah, I think it could be, because I've met a lot of people in Skowhegan. You know, a lot of people have messaged me, I was firmly for keeping the mascot, and thank you for, showing us the light. You've changed minds, keep it up. So I would love to see, a town that I've come to really care about, take this positive step and work together. And we have offered to help them come up with a name, if they wanted to incorporate something about the natives that live there, whether it, I don't even know, but we could talk about that, something that they could use to truly honor us, but without, stealing or, degrading us or whatever. And I also point out to them that Indians, the word doesn't even represent the people that live there. Those are Wabanaki people. The Norwalk people that fled, those are our descendants, Wabanaki. So, when you say Indians, that term doesn't even honor those people.
Yeah. But a lot of people do use the term Indian.
Right.
It's pretty generic now, but
Yeah.
I mean to use Indian as a mascot and as something signifying a sports team is
Right.
it's not right.
Mm-hmm.
So, what in your overall experience, would you do it again?
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it needs to be done just in this short amount of time. I think we've seen a lot of positive changes, and even on an individual basis, the people I've talked to over there, that's one less abrasive, racist person, that my daughters will have to be around as they grow up in Maine. So yeah, it's absolutely worth it.
Okay. So if you had a message that you wanted to say directly to the people in Skowhegan, and you have this opportunity right now, what would you say to them?
I would say to, use the young man as an example from Keep Skowhegan the Indians. Remember your humanity. That young man that changed his mind because he saw us on a human level, and said, I didn't know better, but now I do, so now I'll be better. I don't think they're bad people. I think they're hanging on to a sense of pride. Maybe it's misplaced. But I would love to work with them to make Skowhegan a better place, and to, have a mascot that they can actually rally behind, that the students aren't afraid to use, that everybody can be happy with, and that doesn't cause all this conflict.
Well said. And thank you for being my guest today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And this is a really, really important subject, and we should really give it some serious thought and pay attention to it. You've been listening to WERU Wabanaki Windows. I'm your host, Donald Loring. I want to thank my guest, Molly Smith of the Penobscot Nation. The music for our show is by Rolf Richter, a track called Little Eagles, and our program engineer is Amy Brown. So I hope to see you or talk to you again next month.